It's that time of year again when it's the manager merry-go-round. It's International Week and Gonzo hates it. And it's that time of week again where you're joining me and Gonzo with a cup of tea. Gonzo, are you hating International Week as normal?
I'm all right. I've been keeping busy. I've not been hating it. It's normally boring, International Week. That's the thing. You get used to your fix of football and then it's not been going on. But I've been all right this week. The kids have got stuff. They've got their own football matches. We had Remembrance Day parade today. There's loads going on at home. And so it's all right. I don't mind. I don't mind this week.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it, watching Scotland have a friendly for the warm-up of watching the World Cup. That's really pointful, that is. Fantastic. Got to see the new kit, which we won't be wearing at the World Cup.
Is it nice?
Yeah, it's decent enough, actually. It's not pink like the last one was. But I think it helps, though, that we needed this for West Ham. I think this international break came bang at the right time for West Ham, given what's going on with the manager, the form, the fans, everything.
I totally agree. Actually, just to give the manager time to settle. I know some of the players have been on international duty, but even then he had half of the squad. But to get some of them down, it's very, very rare that you get a week or two to train with the players and to impart your ideas on them. Because a lot of the time, if you're training for a game as well, and someone comes in. A lot of time players are resting in between games, and as we know, a few of our players have been doing a lot of resting recently. So it's been good for him. I'm sure it was the perfect time to bring a manager in, particularly one whose perhaps main task was going to be getting the squad fit.
Do you know? I actually think I know what you're saying. I actually think the opposite. I think the international week makes it extremely difficult for Moyes, actually, because he's only got about 10 first-team players that's fit and at training right now. The ones that aren't on international duty, some of them are injured. But how is he supposed to prepare for Watford when the likes of Hernandez and Arnautovic and all that are away with the country? It must be quite difficult because Hernandez probably won't get back until late this week. He might be injured, but let's just say he never had that injury and he's fully fit. How are you meant to prepare for Watford when the striker who should be your starting striker, you won't meet until 10 days into your reign? I mean, should we expect Andy Carroll up front, do you think? Because he's the one that's there. Sakho's away with Senegal. Hernandez is away with Mexico. So should we expect Andy Carroll to be playing just purely because of who he's had at training?
Yeah, well, I mean, Arnautovic has been about as useful as a player in another country anyway, quite frankly. But I do think that the players that are here, like Andy Carroll, it's a chance for them to impress. I also think... I totally agree with what you're saying. There's also a chance for some of the youngsters to impress. He had to bring in a load of youngsters just to make up the numbers so as he could play the training games sort of thing. But it was a really good chance for some of those to impress. And the fact that he had to have Terry Wesley stood behind him because at that point he didn't have Irvine and he didn't have Pearce. So it was a chance for Terry Wesley to whisper in his ear and say, look, I think that he might be able to do a job for you. So they get the first chance to impress. In terms of Andy Carroll, well, his managerial record suggests that's the way he may well play anyway. So this is a man who loved big Duncan Ferguson, like even Everton and Achibi, who wasn't a particularly good player, but he was big. So he would play him up front. And there's been many. I think Kone as well was quite a big lad. There's been many, and he seems to Fellaini, of course, is the other one. He likes a big fella up there. So I think possibly even if Hernandez were available for the 2 weeks of training at the start of Moyes' new job, we still would have seen Andy Carroll up front.
I'm not sure Kone is a big guy. I think you mean Yakubu.
No, I mean Kone is the he had died there, didn't he? He had died there. He was from Wigan. The guy from Wigan. No, all right, not huge, but he was muscular. He's a strong player. He's quite a strong player.
I wouldn't attribute him to being strong. I thought you were meaning Yakubu there when you were talking about.
No, Yakubu was a Nigerian who pretended to be 27, didn't he?
Yeah, he was successful for David Moyes. So was Saha.
I've never seen a finer 50-year-old footballer in my life. Yeah.
So was Saha as well, though. But I think Moyes has mentioned about how he likes to see crossing in his first press conference. That's one hint. And two, he said that he's spoken to 3 players: Zabaleta, Mark Noble, and Andy Carroll. So I assume that's who he's picked out at training. Going, well, you're my 3 senior players here. You 3 are coming away with me. I'm putting you in. I'm working with you. I wouldn't be surprised to see Carroll start up front against Watford. Anyway, David Moyes, though, he's saying the right things, doing the right things so far. The media, what I have to say, though, the media team has played a blinder here this week. the media team, honestly, I have to applaud the media team because all they've done over the last so long, Village's reign, all they've shown us is goals, right? Now, I know his training was a little bit lax, but I don't believe all they did was shoot, okay? They must have done some other stuff. But all we've seen with David Moyes is these clips that make Moyes look like Pep Guardiola. The media team have done a blinder. They've clearly seen that the fans aren't overly happy with the appointment, and they've gone away and done all this work in the background, and the fans are now happy with the appointment. And I have to say, it's either I think most of it is the fans actually just going, okay, let's take a step back. It's not that bad. Let's all calm down. But I have to say, the media team, they've earned their wages this last week.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. They've been basically posting lots of clips of working hard, haven't they? Which is fine and it's good, and they're trying to convey the message that Moyes is getting them fit again. But of course, by trying to convey that message that Moyes is getting them fit, they're also sort of endorsing the theory that Bilic had them unfit. So I feel a bit sorry for Slav in many respects. We went there. Myself and Charlie went there for the training last year, and they were training. They weren't all stood around with their fingers up their bums. They were training. They had a little hill. They built this hill, and Sacco was running up and down a hill. Andy Carroll was pedaling a bicycle. He wasn't moving, one of them ones that you get in a gym. What are they called? What are they called bicycles in a gym?
Training bike.
Yeah, training bike. There you go. We had one. We just used to hang our clothes on it in the end. I used it for a week and it got used as a clothes horse. But anyway, he was on the training bike. But all the others were running around and doing all their drills. So clearly Slav did some training work and some fitness work. But I think you would certainly expect a big improvement in that.
What about his press conference and that so far? I mean, since we did our show about Moyes, he's come and done his first press conference and stuff, and he spoke about how he's going to work on fitness and getting us organised, etc. And he said he wants to play attacking football. It's not really something I'd attribute with David Moyes, to be honest with you. He did sort of step back from that and go, but first we have to get winning. Before you see attacking football, we have to play winning football. It's a bit like the Sam Allardyce way.
Yeah.
Allardyce came in and said, nah, this West Ham tippy-tappy bollocks thing is not happening. You won't win your games. I think that's what he's saying all the right things so far.
He is, but he's got to say that, hasn't he? And I don't want to criticise him at all. I do think he's done a couple of good press conferences. I think the first one, which was put out by the club when he was sat down in the office, a young lady was interviewing him, and I thought that was a good interview. Katie came across really well in that. And then he actually had the press conference one where clearly it was the press conference to announce him as manager. I thought he came across well in that as well. I think Moyes was helped by we all had such a low opinion of him. It sounds terrible, doesn't it? We had such a low opinion of him and all expecting it to be so sort of dour and boring and useless that actually you couldn't help but achieve higher than those expectations. He came in, he spoke well, he said really a lot of what we wanted to hear. He didn't blow smoke up our bums by saying, I'm going to play the West Ham way and Bobby Moore and Trevor Brooking and all the rest of it. He didn't, he didn't say that. He stopped short of that, which I'm pleased about because we would have known it was a load of old flannel anyway. But he said the right things. It's good. And I'll tell you something. I'll tell you what I will say. I wasn't particularly looking forward to Watford after the last game, after the Liverpool game or whatever. And since his appointment, I am. I found myself looking forward to that game now. I'm going there with a spring in my step and hopeful that we can get something. And I wouldn't even mind if we went up there and we played a bit dirty and a bit defensive and we came away with a 1-0 win. I would not complain at all.
I think that's what he's got to do, actually. He's talking about getting back to basics, and I think that's what we've got to do. As I've not said it for a while, actually. And you like this saying that I say, if you're not going forwards, you're going backwards. There's no such thing as standstill in football. And I think we've been going backwards for too long now, and it feels like we're now starting to go forwards again. I think Watford is easier than people think. I think people think Watford, they're doing really well. Hard game. They've only won one game at home all season. They've lost their last 3. It's not. I actually think it's a decent enough opposition for Moyes to have. And I'm actually glad it's away. His first game is away. I'm actually glad at that. But like Pearce, it looks like Stuart Pearce has been confirmed tonight. It's coming out that Stuart Pearce is confirmed. We spoke about that. Still happy?
Yeah, absolutely. I like him as a good guy.
Bring him on. And the one thing I did think about David Moyes, which is weird, remember when he went to Sunderland, straight away he basically said, this squad's crap. We're in a relegation battle. The season hadn't even kicked off. He was saying they're in a relegation battle. Then in January, he said, doesn't matter who we bring in, they're not going to be good enough to save us. And you go, oh, hang on. I didn't notice in his press conference, he snuck in that if it doesn't work out for him, at least he's had 7 months at the East End of London. I thought, bloody hell, Dave, you're not very optimistic, are you? It's just like, if it doesn't work, at least I've had 7 months in East London. But I think he is what we need, actually, to get us organised, to get us fit. But how does he get that extra 2 years for you then? What's he got to achieve in the next 7 months in order for him to get the 2-year extension that's been talked about?
Well, I think what he would have to do to get the approval of the fans and what he would have to do to get the contract from the owners are two different things, slightly, I've got to say. I think he could... I don't think he has to achieve too high a position in the league to get the contract from the owners. I think if, let's say, we achieved, let's say 14th, but we were safe with 3 games to go. So those last 3 games of the season, we weren't in, you know what I mean? We knew we were safe, we could look forward to it. I actually think the board would probably look and say, well, actually, do you know what? He's done what we asked him to do. We'll give him the 2 years. He's the guy we wanted before Slav anyway. They were chasing Moyes around before. I think he'd go for that. You listen to a lot of the expectations from fans. Not expectations, but what we'd like to see, let's say. And I think we'd like to see somebody that can push us up into the top 10, and we'd certainly like a cup run. I do think he could sacrifice the cup run as far as the owners are concerned, and it'd be all fine. I think we want to see a cup run. And if that would be something, if I could ever whisper something to him, that would be try and take that cup seriously as well, because that will really help endear you to the fans. It's kept Pardew's reputation going for a long time. We've still looked at fondly by many people because he took the cup seriously.
That's the biggest criticism of him at Everton, that Everton fans had, that he never won anything there, and the closest he got was runner-up in the FA Cup final, and he'd been there 11 years and hadn't won anything. I think he's got the tag of being the longest manager at Everton without winning anything, which is, I think, is a bit harsh considering that he finished in the top 8 for 6 seasons in a row. I think that's an achievement, although you don't get a trophy for it. But what's he got to do for you? I know you said about a cup run, but what has David Moyes got to achieve by May when we play Everton, his old club, last game of the season? What's David Moyes have to do for you to be happy with him getting a 2-year deal?
Funny enough, I'm not too bothered about the league position as much as I want us to be safe. But I never have seen a huge amount of difference between 14th and 8th, quite frankly. I think it's all about trophies for me. And I'm not saying he has to win a trophy, but he has to look like he might be putting something in place to do so. I'd like to see him show a little bit of adventure. What you said there about Zabaleta and Carroll and Noble being taken to one side, I can understand that. I can understand why he's got to do it. Now, certain people remember when he first got the job at Everton. They were really, really struggling. And they got a nickname. They got a label. They were labelled the Dogs of War. There'll be a few people that remember that. The Dogs of War. That's what they were called. Because he labelled them that. We need our Dogs of War. And that was his style of play. And he did it. And I don't think they escaped relegation that season. Did a little bit better the next. And then went on to consistently sort of be in and around the top 6. I want a bit more than Dogs of War. I expect him to try and get us safe. After that, I want to see him taking the cup seriously. I want to see 1 or 2 youngsters, and I would like to see a little bit in terms of flair. I'm interested to see how he incorporates Lanzini. I don't expect him to play loads and loads of ball players, but I want to see how he utilises Lanzini. But having seen what he did with Morales and Pinar and Arteta, he built a team around Arteta at Everton at one point, and I want to see that. I want to see some ball players in there as well. And he doesn't have to do an awful lot, but I just want to see a little bit more than that old David Moyes, just to show that we haven't got an Allardyce Mark II in that sense. And that would do me at the moment. I just think we need a proper, decent football manager for a little while. It wasn't what was sold on the tin. We were meant to move to the stage, and we were meant to be bigger and better things at this point. Unfortunately not. We have gone, you said about the moving forwards, moving backwards, we have gone 3 steps back. I'm sorry. And bearing in mind, we've gone 3 steps back. We're almost back where we were when Allardyce had just got us promoted. Actually, we just need a proper football manager for the moment now, just to stabilise us. And we can't really afford much of the old fancy stuff at the moment, I'm sorry to say.
I can pretty much echo that. I mean, I don't see us in a relegation battle just now. I keep saying, I know people are saying he's got a hard job to keep us up. I really don't think he has. With that pool of talent he's got there, we're 2 wins off to the top of the table. It's not, there's not 8 games to go. We're literally 11 games in. There's still 27 games to go in Premier League. That's a long, long time. We're not in a relegation battle yet. For me, I'm a bit the same as you. My league position, I'm not going to get upset if it's 12th, and I'm not going to get overly excited if it's 9th or 8th or whatever. It's about taking the cup seriously. And the youth as well. I'd like to see youth come in, but this is where it goes back to this is where I think David Moyes has been a bit hard done by. I don't think 2 years is a big enough reward. If he's getting 2 years, I'd like to see him get 4 or 5. And that is sold on. You must get those kids into the first team. And if they're not good enough, we sell them on. But you have to see them through. You have to get them from there to there. 2 years isn't enough, in my opinion, for a manager to go, right, I'm going to invest in these youngsters. Because when they're 18 now, they're only going to be 20 in 2 years' time. That's still not really old enough for first-team football. You give them a 5-year deal, then they're 23, and that's old enough to be playing first-team football, apparently. I would like to see him get, if it's him or the next manager, I'd like to see someone get a big enough reward that shifts their focus onto our academy. I'm not that worried about European football because I don't think it's achievable. I don't think, well, it is achievable, but I don't think we have the financial backing or the clout to go ahead and do that and compete. So I think we have to be successful in other ways, and that is with the kids and, as you said, trophies. And that's the 2 things I'd like him to focus on. But acceptable football, I'd call it acceptable football and attacking-ish football. I understand some games you have to shut up shop and you can't go attacking football, etc. And for the first little while, he's going to be like that. He's going to be safety first. Let's get the 1-0. Let's get the 1-1. Let's get the 2-1. There's going to be no... When we're 1-0 up, I don't expect to see us go for a third goal, for example. But I'm a bit wary. We'll wait and see. We'll take it game by game. But let's talk about some of the other things that people have said except David Moyes. David Sullivan. Now, this board have annoyed me this week, Gonzo. They annoy me quite a lot, but they've annoyed me this week. He kept his mouth shut the whole transfer window, and then when it's shut, he opened it about Carvalho and threw Bilic under the bus. Then this whole thing was the Dildo Brothers came out, etc. He's kept it quiet again. Then he opened it to say there's 95% of fans are happy at London Stadium. Then it went quiet again. He's come out now and said that David Sullivan... David Sullivan's come out and said that David Moyes is a gamble. I mean, it's not the cleverest thing to say when you've just appointed someone, is it? I mean, I actually make him right. I think he is correct. I think it is a gamble. Just like he was correct when he said Joe Hart's the best keeper he's ever signed. But I don't think you should be saying it.
This is really tough. I think a lot of the... Sorry, my earpiece keeps on that. I think a lot of the time there's... it sounds strange. It's almost like they're desperate to be loved. So they keep saying these things in the media so as people can understand. Say, oh, yeah, that's right. So it's almost like he said it. He knew when he did the Moyes appointment that it wasn't going to be universally popular. So he's thinking, oh, hold on, how can I let the fans know that I'm not 100% behind it? It's almost covering himself for both eventualities. So if the Moyes thing works out, I go, oh, I pick Moyes. And if it goes to pot, he can turn around, well, I sort of knew it was a gamble. I said as much, didn't I? And he's always letting us know that, yeah, I'm with you and I know it's a gamble. It's this media game. And there's lots of people that play the media game. What I'd say is he's not very good at it. There's proper spin people in the media. A lot of them work for political parties, of course, who will really spin something and spin how it's said. And they're really, really good at it. And he sort of plays the game, but it doesn't really work out for him because a lot of the stuff, like, you may even go on to discuss the money thing today, the turnover sheet was about to be published. A lot of it, for us to believe it, almost takes us for fools. It's almost like we believe media spin. Well, people aren't. People are smart enough to read between the lines and make up their own minds. So you've got your own opinion on Moyes and what's happened and what's gone down, and every other fan out there that's watching this and anyone that's not has got their own opinion on everything that's gone down, and something that's said through the owner is not going to suddenly change our opinions. We're big and ugly enough to have our own minds, basically.
Do you think the media are starting to turn on the owners a little bit? I think this last week especially, I think we've seen some well-known journalists such as Oliver Holt and etc. are now starting to focus towards our boardroom a little bit and say, well, actually, you're the problem at West Ham. I've seen a few pieces coming out criticising the way they've been running the club. And I do wonder if they're going to start feeling the pressure a little bit.
Well, even Martin Samuel did as well, who, of course, was accused last season of being in with the club, so to speak. And I can't remember what it's about now. I did read it, but he wrote something that was quite critical. So maybe they are, but you've got to remember there's a lot of heavyweights, let's say, in terms of the old boys network in the game, and none more so than Sam Allardyce. All of those boys, Allardyce and Richard Keys and all of those type of people, if they say things enough times, particularly as they've got quite prominent roles now on Sky Sports. Paul Merson's been critical as well. Allardyce is now on Talk Sport. So this is the mainstream sport media. And if they are going to be critical, then people will pick up on it. And, if Allardyce is critical, then Alan Shearer, who's sort of buddy with him, he'll join in and he'll be critical as well. They're all sort of a boys' network, and they'll go along with what each other says because they're all mates, really. And, yeah, I mean, things are turning. And he did that thing about the tweets, didn't he? So Allardyce said in the week he was sick of... to be fair, it's probably not tweeted for a year or so. And then a lot of the papers reacted to that and started saying, oh, yeah, he shouldn't be tweeting. I had a little bit of sympathy for that, to be fair. But he also said in the same interview when he was co-hosting on TalkSport, he said David Gold answers every single tweet that's sent to him. Well, he doesn't. That people trying to get him to tweet or something, but he does tweet too much. David Gold does tweet too much. Now, if someone has said that about me or anything about me, I think, do you know what? I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to shut up. And what did David Gold do the very same day as Allardyce said that David Gold tweets too much? He put out a long-ass tweet. And I thought, oh, no, for goodness sake, don't do that. Don't do that. And I think on any other club, probably the media team would act as a buffer. In the same way as you might think something in your mind, you don't necessarily blurt it out your mouth. You edit your own thoughts before they come out as words out your mouth. That would normally be a buffer zone to do that, which would be the media team. But because they're dealing, they can't. The media team can't control the owners. The owners just go bah, and they just spurt out whatever they've got to say, and everyone else has to deal with the fallout. Really.
Yeah, I was the same. The thing I picked about that Allardyce thing is when he said about how he had a sports psychologist. And the board said to him, well, what's the problem with the players? What's wrong with them? And he said, well, we can't tell you. It's confidential. And then they were sacking sports psychologists. I thought, well, that's the worst thing to come out of that.
Well, I mean, it's just absolute farce. It was. I thought he was being quite restrained as well, Allardyce. You've got the feeling he wanted to say more, and probably later boot him, but it's almost you almost don't have to later boot into West Ham. Almost do the damage to ourselves, don't we?
I'd imagine him, and I imagine Bilic has got the same, etc. They'll all have stuff when they get paid off or whatever to sign a confidentiality agreement that refrains them from saying anything. Karen Brady's also been in the paper. Her Sun article is normal. Did you read that?
I didn't, but I did see some reaction to it. So I didn't. Obviously, the link comes with it. People react to it. I never click on the link and think, oh, do you know what? I'll read Karen Brady's article, give it some context. I don't bother. You don't have to, do you?
Oh my lord, she fairly put the knives in Bilic. She basically said that Bilic rode off the Payet success and then he's been beaten since, and but how he's a very nice man. I'm pretty sure she got his age wrong in the article as well. I think she actually got his age wrong, which is a bit. But the one thing that I picked up on, which I really don't like lies, okay, and she lied in it. She said that West Ham have spent 100 million since Bilic this year, and no other club outside the top six have spent more. So do you know what I did, Gonzo?
I do know what you did. Tell everyone what you did.
Did you?
I did. I absolutely did. Yes. I know. Yeah, your article on the West Ham way.
Yeah. Well, I like my stats. I like my facts. And when she said that, I thought it's a bit precise. 100 million. I thought it's a bit accurate, a bit too round. If she said we have spent 113.6 million, I probably would have not picked up on it, because she said 100 million. I thought, well, that figure sounds like you've just plucked out there. It's a bit like David Sullivan, 95%. You've literally just made it up. So I went and had a look, and we've actually spent 163 million. So I thought maybe she was talking about net. I had a look. No, we've only spent 82 million net. So we've not spent 100 million net or actual expenditure. So it doesn't matter what she's talking about. She's wrong. So I thought, okay, no club out of the top six. So I ruled out the top six, and I ruled out any club that's not been in the Premier League for the last 2.5 seasons. So Brighton, Huddersfield, Burnley, Sunderland, I ruled them out. I thought, well, it's not fair to compare ourselves. So I took the comparable clubs, which is the likes of West Brom, Southampton, Palace, the ones that have been in the Premier League the last 2.5 years. That's not included in the top 6. And the following teams have spent more than West Ham. This is not net, more than West Ham: Everton, Leicester, and Watford. So they've all spent more than us. And net spend, so I took into account its income with and outgoings as well. And net spend, those 3 sides, Watford, Everton, and Leicester, have spent more than us. But so have Crystal Palace and Bournemouth. So she's lying. Like, how does she honestly think nobody's going to check? Does she honestly think we're all going to read it and go, yep, cheers, no problem, Carly. Nice of you to back Bilic. Thanks for that. Now, I tried to I didn't say anything critical of her in the article because I wanted it to remain factual, and that's what I stuck to. I stuck to facts. But the board need to understand the thing that pisses us off the most is the lies. If they came out and said, we were there, she said we spent 163 million, which is only behind Everton, Leicester, and Watford, we would have had nothing to hit her with, right? But because she's come out and said, well, we spent more than any other club. Well, no, you haven't, Karen. It's a barefaced lie. You haven't. So I don't know. That article really wound me up because
but that's not for us. That 100 million quote is not for us. And here's the point. That is to butter up. Well, you said those people that are turning on them in the wider media, that's for them. That's for the Bournemouth fan. That's for the Man City fan. That's for the Leicester fan and the Man United fan. So as they hear, hold on, Karen Brady said that West Ham has spent 100 million. That is a soundbite for them. And they do that to the main media. That's for your Talk Sports, your newspapers, and blah, blah, blah. Because West Ham fans are not going to them for the West Ham news. They're listening to this. They're on these Mother Brown, ex-employee, Claret and Hugh, Hammers Chat, whatever. They're watching West Ham fan TV. Well, West Ham fans get their West Ham information from West Ham outlets now. So I don't think she would have said that to one of us. But it is disingenuous. And it is very, very naughty to put out 2 bodies of information. And I don't know why they try and curry favour with the outside football community. I do think it's a strange one. They're better off talking directly to us, literally looking down a camera, of which they could choose anyone's camera. There's enough of us, let's be perfectly honest. And talking to us directly, it'd be so much easier to do. And then there wouldn't be misquotes, and there wouldn't be this, and there wouldn't be people like you having to dig around and dig up and make articles where you're basically supplying the facts. But it's what I said earlier, for us to all believe that takes us all for fools. We're not fools and not idiots. There's, we've all got a calculator on our phone. Do you know what I mean?
I just think it's a bit daft when a month ago at Wembley the away fans were saying sack the board, then you come out with just barefaced lies, and she wrote in about how everyone respects Bilic, and I think that's fair. That's the only part of the article I agree with. But then she talks about how he was basically crap. But I just thought, he's gone now. Just let him go in peace. There's no need to throw knives at him now he's out the door. But there's stuff in there about, she says about how he struggled after Bilic and after Payet left. Well, surely the board should have replaced Payet then. If you genuinely think that Payet's carrying Bilic, you need to then replace Payet. But the whole article really wound me up. It was a disgusting article, actually. If you go read it, I challenge you to read it without starting to get a bit...
I don't need to, because everything you've said I've already heard. There's been enough, that's what I'm saying, there's been enough snippets of it. And what it is, it's desperately seeking approval. But, it's saying, look, please don't judge us, or please approve of what we've done. This is why we did it. This is why we did it. This is why we did it. It's desperate stuff, really.
The funny thing is, though, like you said, it's for the mainstream. But the people that matter, the people that pay to go watch West Ham, the West Ham fans, actually understand why Bilic got sacked. Most of us agreed with the decision. So if you actually said nothing, nobody would have said anything. But you come out with this, and it looks like you're just throwing knives in Bilic's back, which it is. And you just piss off more people when the relationship between the fans and the board are already fragile. I mean, it was fragile a year ago. They tried to mend it, and I think they did mend it a little bit. But like we're talking about West Ham going backwards, the board are going backwards again. You just think, why do you say this thing? Why are you so insistent on pissing off West Ham fans? Because sometimes I actually think they try and piss us off because they manage it so successfully. And if they were as good at pissing off West Ham fans as they were investing in players, we'd be Champions League club by now. But unfortunately, they're not. But I just think the mainstream media started to turn on them. I do think there's bigger journalists. We got contacted by a pretty big national journalist yesterday, asking for some information and that. So they are turning. They're reaching out to West Ham communities and saying, "Here, that guy's clearly working on a piece." I'm not going to
No. I mean, but it was weird. Gio's absolutely right. We got contacted yesterday by a mainstream media person asking us stuff about West Ham
in the country.
Sorry.
One of the biggest journalists in the country.
Yeah, and clearly they're digging. Ignored it, to be fair, but it's what can you do? They've clearly got the scent of blood in their nostrils at the moment, and the trouble is, just going back to what you were saying, is when you are dealing. I don't know why they're trying to appease the mainstream media. As you say, we're the ones that count. The trouble is when you're telling one person one thing and another person nothing, but hinting that there are basically two different ways, then you cannot go on that way by having two lines of information. You've got to be consistent and you've got to be steady in what you say. It's desperate to be loved. I just think they're desperate to be loved and just going about it completely the wrong way.
I wasn't around in the older days like you were, but I'd imagine it was easier back then to spin two things because there wasn't social media, there wasn't all these websites, there wasn't YouTube. So it was easy to get off with two different sets of information because the chances of them combining were not slim, but manageable. You could manage it. You could put fires out. This day and age, when you get found out, you get found out, and you can't put the fires out anymore. Those fires spread, and they spread bloody quickly sometimes, and the problem is, instead of trying to put them out, they're almost throwing fuel on the fire. They're, you know what, let's just keep this fire going a little bit more. But anyway, enough about the board. Let's talk about one or two other things before we start taking questions from our live viewers. Darren Lewis, one guy who's still on the board. I don't think he's going to change anytime soon. Put out an article saying that Marko Arnautovic is up for sale in January. He's allowed to go. Moyes is basically allowed to sell whoever he wants to raise funds, and he's been the name that's been dropped. Do you think we should sell him?
I don't know. I don't know if I think we should sell him or not. What I do think is if we do, or if he is up for sale even, what a complete and utter waste of money that's been. Nobody is going to be giving us anywhere near what we paid for him. That's for sure. He's certainly not done anything to inflate his value since he's been with us. In fact, quite the opposite. It's a strange one. It was a strange signing, and I think the word coming out of that article, the vibe coming out of that article, was that they were doing what they could to back Slaven, and Slaven really wanted that player. I think that was pretty much what it hinted at. I didn't get it, but again, trying to cover their own backs almost as if they didn't fancy him, but Slav really did. Well, why do it? You've got not a director of football, but a head of recruitment or a head scout in Tony Henry. Why do it if the only person that fancied was Slav, and you've already got something that you've put into place, and it was the same system that was put into place under Sam Allardyce. If you remember, Sam Allardyce was about to be sacked. They all had a meeting at Sullivan's house, decided not to sack Slav, but they were going to put in place a procedure whereas they would basically do transfers by committee, and at the same time they were going to bring an attacking coach as well, which was Teddy Sheringham. That's how dire things were at the time. That's the system's been in place. The system remains that system. So if that was the case and nobody fancied him apart from Slav, why did we buy him? Why did we spend 24 million on this guy? And now we're going to get rid of him. Be lucky to get 15 for him, I think.
Yeah, I wouldn't get rid of him. I am Mr. Patient. If you watch this channel long enough, you'll know I still back Zaza till the end, really. And I don't think he's had long enough. I think it's his own downfall for that elbow at Southampton. It's his own fault he's not had long enough. But he's played a handful of games. I mean, it's no way long enough for me. To be fair, I wouldn't sell anyone in January. There's maybe one or two names I'd maybe sell, but that's for a different show because I'll piss off a few people. But I wouldn't sell Arnautovic. I'd be keeping him. At the end of the day, he has a lot of talent in his locker. He's not a crap player. He's a bloody brilliant player on his day. And instead of selling him, how about we challenge the manager to get the best out of him and challenge the manager to make him actually consistent? Because when he does turn up, he's bloody good. He's a game changer. He can win you points like that. He's not quite Payet, but he can win you matches. And I just think it's almost the easy option. Oh, he's a bit of hard work. Well, we'll just get rid of him. Well, actually work with him, work on him. You've got 2 months till the window opens anyway. You've got to work with him in that 2 months. So put the graft in on the training ground. And let's get him up to a level. Let's get him mentally ready for and tracking back, etc. It can be work. Maybe David Moyes is the best person to bring that out of him. Someone that is a bit of a taskmaster. Maybe that he is the right manager. We'll soon see. But I just think it's too easy and it's too early to be saying to this guy, no, sorry, you've not cut it yet in your 5 games. You know, apart from Zabaleta, what player has this season? Nobody. So do you sell the whole team? No, of course you don't. I think you need to have a little bit of faith in Arnautovic, and you've got to have a little bit of faith in whoever signed him. Whether it was Bullish, there have been, like you said, someone else at that club would have approved it and said, yeah, he's a good player. So let's have faith in your choice. He was Stoke's best player. He's not turned crap in the space of one something. No, he's not turned crap. I would keep him anyway. But this goes on to an article you mentioned earlier on Claret and Hugh today. If you go on to claretandhugh.info, you want to read it. It's basically saying we ain't got no money. Saying that we're away to post profits, but cash, we've not got any. It's just basically the board putting out there saying, one, the accounts is coming out soon, so don't get ahead of yourself. And 2, come January, don't expect any signings.
It's just preparation for the news coming out. That's all it is. The thing is, we spoke last year and we had this big debate, if you remember, about the money. And I said to you, Gio, it doesn't matter what we say. Okay, there can be no massive fiddle has gone on because you have to register your accounts with Companies House. Okay, everyone can see that's the law around. We don't live in some banana republic. We live in a democracy. We have a national bank, the Bank of England. You cannot do that stuff at a big multinational company, which in many respects a lot of the Premier League clubs are now. So you have to register your account. So I said to you, the truth will come out in the wash, and the wash will be when the accounts. Well, the wash is about to finish. It's on this spin cycle, and the close are just about to come out. And when they do, you'll see the figures. And like I said at the time, there's no way to hide those figures. And I think they've had a look at that. And they've probably thought, well, hold on, we can't hide these figures. These figures are going to show a huge profit. And actually, we've not signed the players we promised we were going to sign. Actually, the last track, whilst your 86 million or whatever it was that you said in your article, might be the case over a period of years. Actually, the net spend in the summer was 13 million. And bearing in mind for the 12 months, and then what we're going to do is we're going to spend 13 of that 80. What they're saying is we better prepare the fans for bad news, and then what we'll do is we'll baffle them with financial talk. We'll talk net, we'll talk gross, we'll talk operating capital, and they'll talk in terms as if there's not one amongst the 55,000 fans in the stadium that runs a company or knows how to handle finances. Of course, again, you're under the assumption that everybody is a fool, everybody's a bumbling idiot. Well, that's not the case. I just think they're trying to prepare us, not for bad news. They're trying to prepare us to justify why, because there's been good news, have we not spent any money? In actual fact, far from us moving to the stadium has actually not yielded the money that we expected it to, and it's failed. That's not the case. The move to the stadium in that financial sense has worked like an absolute dream. The truth of the matter is we've just not spent any of it on the players.
Yeah, I think it's a case of, because we have this whole spread the money thing, it's sort of catching on with us a little bit now, and it's sort of misleading people with the bottom line. I did think the Darren Lewis article on Arnautovic being sold was weird. I thought, why would this come out? Because Darren Lewis is quite clearly very close to David Sullivan. So I thought, why would this come out now? And then this thing on Claret and Hugh come out. I thought, well, that's why it's coming out now. It's almost like the first one was a warning. We have to sell before we can buy in January. So for Moyes to spend some cash, he's got to raise some cash. And this thing's come out on Claret and Hugh tonight. I thought, well, it ties in together a little bit. And to me, the conclusion I'm getting is come January, we don't have much pennies to spend. And if we want to spend, we are going to have to sell first. And not what we promised, as you said. But let's talk about one or two players that have been linked with us in January. Basically, Moyes' mates. Fellaini, the first one. He does seem like an important player to Mourinho, because when he was out, Mourinho sort of complained he didn't have Fellaini. But there is talk that Fellaini's going to be leaving in January. Would you take him at West Ham?
Well, I quite like him. Whisper it quietly. I don't think anyone's watching, but I quite like him, actually. I've always liked him. I liked him at Everton as well. I think he's the type of player you don't like playing against, but you want him in your team. He's He's a useful player, can play in 3 different positions. Was he ever a £30 million player? No. If we can get him for dirt cheap, would he benefit the West Ham squad? I think he would. I still think we need someone a little bit more mobile in the midfield, though. But I wouldn't complain. I wouldn't complain if we signed Fellaini.
Morales.
I like him. Yeah, good player. Good player.
My concern with those two, while they're good, they are good players, and they're Moyes players. They're both 30, or they will be 30 in January, and this is concerning me that when we played Crystal Palace, we had the second oldest team out in the Premier League that weekend, and we're only going to be adding 2 more 30-year-olds to it. And I just think it's a little bit short term, a bit like the manager is. It's too short term for me. I'd like to see a younger couple of players brought in, but the problem is, the younger you go, the higher the transfer fee goes. We ain't got the transfer fee. We're going to have to go back down and look at all the players or loans. I mean, I wouldn't be adverse to either of them coming. I think Fellaini is a bit of a dirty bugger, but I think his discipline maker is actually better than people assume. I don't think he's not been sent off that many times. He knows when to. He sort of knows when to go douche and then stop and just. I think he also knows how to chat to a referee clearly, because he does get up there a lot, so he knows how to communicate with the ref. But do you know something though? That's what we've been lacking a lot this season. The amount of times we've been bullied on the pitch, or someone's been taking the piss, the ball's been getting knocked around us, and we've been missing someone just go through someone and just go, no, you're not taking the piss out of us slot here. We need someone with a bit of nastiness in him. One other player, we've been linked with another couple of players, but we'll talk about them in another show because this one's more about Moyes. So we'll talk about Harry Arter and Jack Wilshere near the transfer window. Last topic before we get onto the questions. If you've got any questions, put them in the live chat. I'll start writing them down for you. Mr. Andy Carroll decided to have a pop at fans. You never read that. You would have definitely heard about it when Andy.
I know about this. Yeah, absolutely.
Said that fans should stay to the end to support the team. They need us. And when he goes home and watches match of the day, he doesn't like it.
Well, that's a shame, isn't it? Shame for him when he's sitting down watching match of the day. He doesn't like it. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, listen. I stayed to the end. We were there at the end of that game. Defend anyone's right to leave early, though. I've got to say, that's a lot. That is a bugger to get out of. You know what? It takes so long to get down to that station. He's got no idea. If he wants to. Next time he's not playing, he can leave. He can leave for me if he wants. He can walk down the station. Well, of course he wouldn't, because he'd get mobbed, wouldn't he? But he wants to try and spend 45 minutes when you've got a little kid with you with stop and go signs, trying to reach your last train. Funny enough, which the last 2 times I've been to Waterloo, we've actually missed, and we ended up having the closest we could get to home was Guildford, having to spend 50 and 60 quid on taxis both times once we even got to the station to get home. So I don't blame anyone for leaving early, particularly with what was on offer there. If you don't want people to leave early, maybe play a little bit better on the pitch and people will stick around to wait for the exciting finish.
Do you know the funny thing? I read that article. I was on a bus home from the Liverpool game. I thought, fuck off, you knobhead. Literally, I just watched us get beat 4-1 by Liverpool, which I'll stay till the end for. And I stayed because I was quite intrigued as to who would come over. And I was actually seeing if Bilic would come out. I was actually genuinely wondering if Bilic would come out and sort of say goodbye, if you like. Because I thought, if he does, I'm going to stand here and applaud him. Okay? I was genuinely going to clap Bilic, but he didn't. Winston Reid, see when whistle went. Winston Reid literally legged it to the tunnel. I hadn't seen him move all that fast during the game. As soon as that whistle went, bang, he was off. The only player that stood on the middle of the pitch was Joe Hart. The rest of them couldn't give a toss, And I just thought, well, first of all, I was impressed that he watched it all match of the day, because we're usually last. That means he watches the whole match of the day, so fair play to him, because sometimes I get a bit sleepy.
He's got a lovely sofa. Have you seen? He's got a lovely pink sofa. Have you seen it? Oh, mate, it's massive. You just fall asleep on that after 10 minutes if you had that sofa.
Yeah, but it's just, I just thought, what fucking cheek have you got to even question the fans? If we were sitting 6th in the league, and it was 1-1 until the last 10 minutes, and we couldn't quite get a winner, I had to kind of get it and go, well, you know what? The fans should actually be staying to really push the team on and get that winner. We're walking out when it's 3-0 against Brighton, Andy. It's just, it's not 0-0. It's not 1-1. Fans are leaving when we're getting smashed by Brighton. I just thought, of all the people to have a dig at, the fans is the last people you have a pop at. And I've seen someone saying, well, that's rich coming from him, because when he left early for one game, he's seen Andy Carroll in his car, and he was like, well, you left early. So, but I just thought, I was actually shocked. I was genuinely shocked to read it. I thought I've always known that players would think it. Players would think, well, if you stay behind that. Part of me thinks, well, fair play to you for having the balls to say it, because I would like players to be a bit more honest. Like when Mark Noble came out last season saying about how fans don't understand football, you do a step over, you get man. I actually like the fact that he's got the bollocks to come out and say it. But not the right time, Andy.
No, you're right. It was poorly timed. It was poorly timed. And also, not just in terms of defeat, you're talking about a Category A game. So there's people paying 80, 90 quid for tickets. You know, the train's another 30, 40 quid. You know, beer's a £5, burgers £7. I mean, it's a lot of money, and you take your kid as well. You shouldn't be telling people what to do after they've paid all that money and they're struggling to get home because the transport's so bad.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I'm not going to hold that against him. You know, I'm not going to boo him or anything, and so like that. It's just it wound us up, and it was just not the right time to be making those comments. I'd imagine the West Ham media, who've been working really hard on all these training videos, were thinking, "Oh, come on, Andy, mate, did you have to come out and say that?" But right, let's get stuck into some questions. Live, if you're watching this live, you can put your question in a live chat on YouTube. If you're not watching this on YouTube, you might be watching on our mobile phone app or on our forum. Hover on the bottom corners, one of these two corners, will come up the YouTube tab. Click on that, it'll open up on YouTube. There's a live chat with many West Ham fans are in discussing it for the whole show. You can get involved during the show and put your questions in. We're ready to answer some of them. Any more questions, put them in. If I've missed them, put them in. I'll get round to it again. But first question, Gonzo, is from Daz. He says, how can we let David Moyes choose the players in January when he's only here on a short term?
It depends if we believe what's been said, Daz. I would imagine he's been given a small budget. So I would, well, we know it's a small budget at West Ham, but I'd imagine that they probably believe that whatever they can give him, they can afford to lose. I think you've got to support him by bringing him in. You've got to support him, and you've got to let him have a player that he wants or two players that he wants. Also, our board are good at doing loan deals. Don't put it past them to actually highlight a couple of players that Moyes wants and get them on loans. They're quite good at that. So I'm pretty sure however they back him, it will be a risk-free operation in terms of financial outlay.
I think it's important we treat David Moyes as if he's here for the next 5 years. I think it's important that we look at David Moyes as a long-term manager, and anything else than that, we treat him as a 6-month manager. He's going to feel like a 6-month manager. It's going to be undermining him, and it's just not going to succeed. We've seen it with Bilic. It didn't work. He got treated like a short-term option. Treat David Moyes like that, it just will not work. You've got to go into January assuming he's going to be here next season, and to be honest, you've got to go in hoping he's going to be here next season, because if he does well, he's going to be. And you've got to let a manager, short-term or long-term, live and die on their own sword. You have to give Moyes the players he wants. Not all the players, but he has to be predominantly in charge. If he wants a fast winger, we've got to go get a fast winger. If he says, I want Fellaini, we've got to do our goddamn best to go get Fellaini. But the best thing about Moyes is Tony Henry. They work together at Everton. The relationship is there. It's not a new relationship. They were successful at Everton bringing in players. So I'm actually relaxed with the transfer window more than I was under Bilic, despite the fact Moyes is here short term, because of Tony Henry. Moyes will trust Henry. Henry will trust Moyes, etc. And hopefully Sullivan trusts Tony Henry. And that, we spoke before about how we need a director of football. We need that trio, manager, Henry and Sullivan, to work together and actually do better in the transfer market. I actually think this trio could be that trio. It didn't work under Bilic. I think it might work under David Moyes, actually. But we'll wait and see. Mike is asking, do you think Moyes will get the best out of Diafra Sakho?
I do, actually, Mike. I think it's a fresh start for Sakho, even though even though it's a short-term contract, he's got exactly the same length of contract as Moyes, of course. So they're bonded to each other in that sense, aren't they? I think it's the type of player he might like as well. He's mobile. The thing is with Moyes, if you look at him traditionally as well, I say he likes a big guy. He also likes a big number 10. So sometimes he'd have a small front forward, main striker. But actually, he's number 10. His guy behind would be quite a big guy, like Fellaini being a case in point. So he may. I wouldn't put it past Moyes. I'm not suggesting he will, but even if things didn't work out with Carroll, and you've got to say that Carroll may well get injured anyway. If he wanted an Arnautovic, it would not surprise me if he played an Arnautovic as a number 10. He likes a physical presence at number 10. And if he were, it wouldn't also surprise me if he played someone like Sacco in front of him, because Sacco still has that physical presence, obviously not quite as big or as muscular. He's also fast. He's probably the most all-round striker we've got. So I think there is a chance. And if he genuinely means, and he's an honest guy, Moyes, I've got no reason to believe he's not, if the slate is wiped clean for everybody, then you've got to assume the slate is wiped clean for Sacco. And if it's wiped clean, Sacco may just well impress him in training.
Yeah, it's a tough one for me. I've got my head and heart here. My heart says, no, don't even bother with him. Just get rid of him in January as soon as possible. My head's thinking, he is a good player on his day. If we can, be like Arnautovic earlier, if Moyes can light a fire under his arse and get him going, he is actually a really good striker. And I think Sacco suits Moyes more than Hernandez does. We all know about Moyes and Hernandez at Man U, and that slate's been wiped clean, as I say. But I'm not convinced the football Moyes plays will get the best out of Hernandez. I could be completely wrong, and hopefully I am, because he is our best finisher. But I actually think Sacco would suit David Moyes' style a little bit more. And it could be interesting that them two. More to come on that one for sure anyway. Framer says, should Moyes be playing the young kids and giving them a chance, or is it risky due to the league position?
I think it's risky if you were going to do all of them. I don't think it's risky drafting Rice into the team amongst a load of seasoned internationals. I also don't think it's risky bringing a player, be it Martinez or Holland or somebody, off the bench occasionally. I don't think that's risky. I wouldn't even consider that playing the youngsters. I'd just consider that using some of the more youthful players in your squad. There's enough seasoned internationals. I mean, I'm certainly sure that I think he's going to love Antonio. I think Antonio's going to be a David Moyes player, and then some. He's going to love his strength, his work rate, his speed. Once he gets Antonio fit, he's going to absolutely love it. And I think with people like Mark Noble and Zabaleta and Winston Reid, he's going to have his seasoned players in there. So I certainly think there's room for, as I say, Declan Rice, Martinez, Holland, maybe one or two others to be in and around the squad.
Yeah, I wouldn't make a point. I mean, as much as I want to say youth, and I keep banging the drum for it, I wouldn't make a point that he has to play youth. Only if the options are there and it fits, etc. I think centre back is open for Declan Rice now that Font's out till the new year anyway. I know there's Ogbonna and Reid and Collins is coming back, but that makes Rice at the very worst fourth choice, and I think that gives him the opportunity to fit in there. I want to see Haksabanovic given a go as well off the bench. I do think I'd like to see what he's got to offer. Before we go get Morales, I'd like to see what he can offer in case he's just as good, if not better, and 10 years younger. There's a time and a place for them. The problem is our squad's actually, when they're all fit, which is rare, there's quite a decent depth in terms of senior players. You talk about Martinez. Moyes usually plays one up front. At Sunderland, he sometimes played two. They didn't have a settled formation at Sunderland. And if it's one up front, Martinez is fourth in the pecking order. You've got Sacco, Hernandez, and Carroll. He's never going to play Martinez ahead of. Well, he might. We could be surprised, but I'd be very surprised. And the problem is, all these youngsters have got two or three senior players in front of them, rightly or wrongly, but they are. But moving on, Metal Koi says, will David Moyes attract quality players to the club?
No, a quality player costs at least £50 million, I think, these days, at least. I think the top quality costs 150, 200 million. So a quality player, 50 million gets you a quarter of a quality player. No, there's just no way. Honestly, it really, really doesn't matter. You can choose whatever manager you want. Even if we had Pep Guardiola and he had 20 million to spend, he couldn't attract a quality player to West Ham. So, no, I don't expect any top-class players coming to West Ham in January.
Well, I see it different from you. You said quality. I mean, you're talking first class. I get what you're talking about. But to me, quality it sort of determines what level you're sitting at. If you were in the championship and you signed Josh Cullen, I'd say that's a quality signing, because that's your level. But for West Ham, it is probably. Would Fellaini be quality? Probably not. But would Jack Wilshere? Yes. So I think, could David Moyes get him to the club? Maybe, but will the salary? Yeah. Is David Moyes manager? Yeah. So I guess in theory, the answer to his question is yeah. I don't think it matters so much anymore who the manager is. To be honest, I think it's how much they're getting paid is the main driver. I mean, there is some instances that move for the manager, but I think it's getting fewer and fewer. Tom says, what do we do? This is an interesting question. What do we do if David Moyes struggles? Say he gets 10 games and he...
That's a good question.
Then what do we do? Do we keep him or do we twist once more and get rid of him and try and get someone else in?
You have to keep him. You have to keep him. You have to have faith in your decision. You have to have a clear decision-making process, and you have to keep him. Otherwise, you just become another twat of a club that keeps doing all this stupid stuff and keep hiring and firing the managers until you get it right. In fact, you look at a lot of those people, and they are Fulham and Portsmouth and people like that. They've just gone down, and they've not bounced back very quickly either. So I think you have to stick with him. You have to have faith in him. And what Gio said, treat him like he is here for the longer term. He's certainly got some managerial qualities there. There's no doubt about that. He's got something about him. We put faith in him. Let me tell you something now. If we struggled, he's there. He's there because we couldn't get anyone else. Okay, and I don't mean anyone else, but because either A, we couldn't afford, or two, we couldn't attract the people that he wanted, be it Benitez or the German geezer or whoever. So that's why we got David Moyes. Make no mistake about it. If we lose our next 10 games, the choice we're going to have is going to be far, far worse than what we had after the Liverpool game. So we're not going to get a higher calibre of manager suddenly want to take us on. In fact, I think it's bloody brave of Moyes to take us on anyway, bearing in mind it's probably his last managerial job if he gets it wrong. If he gets it wrong, he doesn't get another job. So I think it was quite brave of him to take it on, particularly with the reputation our owners have got and the way the club is and the stadium and all that. So, no, I think we stick with him.
I don't think he is brave. I think it's clever. I cannot see us getting relegated with this team he's got available and the fact that he is a decent enough manager. It's possible with their attitude, etc. But their attitude seems to, going by what we've been fed by the media, not just West Ham, but Antonio and BT Sports, etc. It sounds like the attitude's been changed like that overnight. But what I said about the Moyes appointment, I remember saying, is that even if Moyes isn't successful here, we finish 16th and he leaves, the club, the team will be in a better state under Moyes leaving it for the next guy than it will be if Bilic remained until May. I think it's safe by Moyes. I think he's done well here. I mean, he's apparently going to get 2 million if he keeps us up. I think he can plan to spend that 2 million quid. But back to the question, what do we do if he's struggling? Keep him. His next 10 games aren't easy anyway. They're not easy games. He's got big teams in there, Arsenal and Chelsea, etc. He's got hard fixtures coming up, but you have to give him time. You have to give him time to stamp down his mark and get us playing a certain way, etc.
It was a good question, though. It was a good question.
Yeah, it is. And I do wonder if the board have got an answer to that as well, as to what happens if David Moyes struggles. Does it go to Terry Wesley? I don't know. There's another question by Mike. It's quite a long one. Actually, I'll ask you two. Daz is saying, what formation do you think we're going to see under David Moyes? And Mike is asking, what do you think this means for the club identity and philosophy? As you know, Mike's got a thing about club identity and philosophy, but Daz is also asking, what formation do you think we're going to see?
I think we'll see one up. I remember when Mourinho went in to Chelsea for the first time, really good, the special one press conference where he said he was the special one. Said something else that went under the radar because he said the special one. Said something I really, really liked. Said I'm going to play 2 formations. So I've got one formation at home where I'm going to go for it. I'm going to score lots of goals, and that was one where he had Duff and Robin and the rest of it. So I'm going to have one formation away where I'm going to look to try and get 1-0 wins. And I liked it. I liked his honesty. I would like to see something like that. I really, really would. I think we're seeing one up, and I think we're seeing 4 at the back. And you can mix up the other 5, jumble them up as much as you want, be it diamonds or wings or whatever. That's what I think we're going to play in terms of Mike's philosophy. I think you'll probably get a clearer philosophy, Mike. It might not be the philosophy you like, mate, actually, or the philosophy you want, but I do think you're going to get a philosophy. And I think he's already spelled it out, really. I think he's already said what he's going to do. I think it's going to be about fitness and organisation and commitment. And if he's got those things, then it might allow him to play a bit of attacking football. And I think that's what you're getting. That's a philosophy. But at least this might not be what we want to hear, but at least it's not muddled anymore.
And crosses. I think we're going to see crosses.
I think you're right. Yeah.
I was having a look into David Moyes. I'll see if I can quickly grab it. But when he was at Everton, his last season at Everton, they scored the third most goals for headers, third most headed goals. Expect crosses and headers under David Moyes. Formation, I think you're right. I think you're bang on, actually. I've been working on something for a video. I don't know if it'll come, but I've been working on stuff for a video. And under Everton, he played 4-2-3-1 a lot, but it can and very quickly can adapt to 4-3-3, where he pulls the attacking midfielder in to create a 3 in the midfield to tighten it up. And I think that's what we're going to see. I think we're going to see 4-2-3-1, but when we're playing away or we're playing a big team, I think it's going to be a bit more 4-3-3. I agree with you under philosophy. Hard to beat. We're not going to concede much goals. There was one season, Moyes, again, it's not the best in having a record, but in their history of over 100 years now, the lowest goals they've scored in a season is under David Moyes. They scored 36 goals in 38 games. I mean, that sums David Moyes up. They're hard to beat, but they will not risk a 0-0 in order to go get a 1-0 if it's not necessary. Jazza asks, Jazza asks, this is a good question. He was saying, should we go get Silva at the end of the season? Now, I'm going to mix this up. We're not going to talk about Silva. Should the owners be looking at what manager to get at the end of the season? Or should they be assuming Moyes is going to be here for the long term?
I think you've got to have a contingency. And, I mean, you know, the gentleman asked a question there. What's his name? Jazza asked a question. I think the board have to make contingencies. I've got to be honest with you. I do feel a certain amount of responsibility now, bearing in mind we do videos. And I did say when we did that last one, you know, I wanted Silver at the end of last season, but I do feel the need to almost not speculate too much about who the next manager will be, because I'm mindful just in myself. I've whinged so much about the manager for so long and about Bilic. I want to sort of put my faith in this guy, even though he wasn't my choice. I want to put my faith in him and think actually he's going to do all right and he'll sort of come good. But that's me because I'm a fan. The owners have got to prepare in case it doesn't work out, and they need to have a contingency. I mentioned it before about what Southampton had. Southampton already had their next 10 managers lined up, and a list of them, and 4 players for every position or whatever the case may be. That is being prepared. Hopefully it won't come to that. You said it earlier. We all got to hope that it works out and he gets a new contract, because that'll mean he's done well. And I'm fully behind him.
I'm going to keep some of these questions for the next time because we're running out of time, but two more. Mike, this has been a popular topic on social media. Is this the right time now to change the captain?
No, I think it's probably the wrong time to change the captain. I didn't know that was on social media, and that's my initial instinct without any thought about it. No, I think when we moved last season, it was too much change at once. I think we changed the training ground and the stadium. Lost our main playmaker, albeit he took a couple of months before he was going to go. But I think there was just too much change. I think we did loads of new transfers. There was just so much. I think we've just changed our manager. I think maybe it's time to keep the captain and let him. He's going to have to guide. He knows the club better than anyone, Mark Noble, and I think he's going to have to be, in many respects, Moyes' eyes and ears, and help sort of guide him along on any advice he might need. So I would keep him as such at the moment.
It sounds like under Bilic, sounds like Mark Noble was taking on almost like an assistant manager's role towards the end of his tenure. I don't think that's a bad thing. And if anything, I think Moyes should make him his unofficial assistant manager. And by doing that, you make him the club captain. I am biased, though. I am a big fan of Mark Noble, as everyone knows. I'm never going to say change Mark Noble's captain. Viva Mark Noble. I'd like to see. No, it's a no for me. Keep Mark Noble. I think it's important that there's some sort of, like you said, there's a lot of change. It's important to keep some sort of consistency and identity. And Mark is that person. It doesn't mean he starts every week. That's not what we're saying. But in terms of when he plays, he gets the armband. Last question. There's been some we've had to miss out, but I'll keep them noted down for the next one. We'll do a cup of tea next week and we'll get onto them. There's one or two that I've kept that can be answered next week. But this one can't really, because I don't really want to talk managers next week. Tom says the last 4 managers that this board have appointed at West Ham have been free and they failed at their previous job. Wasn't much. I suppose his question was, what's your thoughts on that then? The fact that the last 4 managers have all been free, and you can't really argue with them, you know, when you do think about them off the top.
You can't ever argue with facts. You can't ever argue with facts. I would say they are uncomfortable facts. Do you know what? It says nothing about the managers and says everything about the way we recruit managers. That's what I would say about that. Let's hope he bucks the trend. We didn't like Sam, but for the first 2 seasons, Allardyce was a useful manager to have. And Bilic was, you know, but Bilic will hopefully look back fondly at parts of his career at West Ham as well. Let's just hope this one works out. Let's hope we got him because he was damaged goods, but actually, you know, he can be repaired. But you can't keep running a club like a second-hand shop. I've got to say that, looking for, you know, free managers and loan signings and this, that, and the other, and trying to get by on low net spends. At some point, if we're going to progress up to that level, you've got to start spending money rather than doing things on a shoestring. But yeah, interesting stat. But I do think I'm hoping Moyes is better than just some freebie second-hand manager, if you know what I mean.
I think it's easy to say they failed at the last job. I think that's a bit harsh. I mean, all 4 of them have had some sort of success at previous managerial regimes. Even Bilic had, arguably, Croatia with his biggest success. Allardyce has had a career of, well, I mean, Bolton was just beyond imagination, is what he achieved there, etc. And I think Moyes with Everton was a fantastic success. I mean, from looking from that, I mean, you don't go to Man United as manager if you're a poor manager. You just don't. Whether Fergie recommended him or not, like you said, there's people above Fergie that would have approved it. They wouldn't have approved it if they didn't think Moyes was the right man either. And I think Moyes was stitched up a little bit at Man U because, again, I've been digging into this, and when you compare him to Louis van Gaal's first season, there's not that much difference between the 2 of them, despite one getting £180 million more than the other, and one being deemed a failure, and the other one just being deemed Long Ball United by Sam Allardyce. But I just think it's just not the first. What concerns me more is not the fact that they failed or the fact they're free. It's not their first choice managers. That concerns me more. The fact that Bilic was 5th choice. Moyes, I mean, it came out that they approached all these other managers before getting Moyes, and David Gold described him as the best available, which insinuates that the other ones are just not available. So it's the fact that they're not the first choice. That's what concerns me more than the previous failings. And on that, I just want to say I hope Bilic actually goes to an international job, because I was thinking about this and I was talking to someone about it, about why he failed at West Ham. They're saying, well, clearly his biggest downfall is training. His biggest success so far is Croatia. And what do you do when what do you not do when you're an international manager? Train. You do not have to worry about your players turn up fit. You coach them and plan for the next game, and then the next game, then you send them away again. So clearly Bilic's fall down is just training. So I do hope that his next job, he goes back into international. And some managers suit international and some managers suit club. And I hope that's where he ends up. But Gonzo, is there anything else you'd like to add or talk about or that before we depart?
I don't think so, mate. I don't think so. No, good. Yeah, nice chat as always.
I just want to say I've missed out questions on Watford on purpose, because we will have our Watford preview on Thursday night. Charlie's got a Q&A with a Watford fan coming up as well. And there's another couple of things on the main channel this week, so keep your eyes out. We also are redoing our website at hammerschat.com. It should be live on Tuesday evening. We're adding blogs to it, and we've got quite a lot of writers lined up as well. So make sure you check that out. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. Everything helps. Drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it, and drop your comments below and give us your thoughts on everything we spoke about. It's mainly been about Moyes and the board and stuff everybody have said, etc. But are you happy, Darren Moyes? Do you think he'll be a success? And also, what do you think about the January transfer rumours already? We're a month and a half away, but Marko Arnautovic is linked with a move away. We're being linked with Fellaini, Morales, etc., etc. Drop your likes below. But anyway, Gonzo, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me as well, and we'll catch you on Thursday night for the preview, if not before then.